Welcome. Today we are honored to have a third congressional district candidate, Jesse Smith, and he is here all the way from Phoenix. So we're going to do a little talking because he is a Democratic candidate and he is interested in talking to our listeners to give them an understanding of what he's about and to have just a little fun this afternoon, getting to know him, getting to know some of the issues and where you stand and all that kind of stuff. As we normally do, like, share on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. But I do appreciate all of our listeners for just tuning in and trying to see what's going on. Our YouTube channel is Centrist Alabama. Uh, Future Congressman, how's that?
Hey, that sounds good to me. Sounds really good.
Future Congressman, but in all seriousness, as we talked a little bit before this is as if you would be coming and sitting in our living rooms and kind of introducing yourself and seeing, what you're all about. I guess the first question in that situation that everybody would normally ask is, who are you?
Well, that's a good question.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for having me on.
Okay.
It's a pleasure being here. Who am I? Well, I'm just a regular old common guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Albany, Georgia. I was raised by my grandparents, and
So you got that old training.
real old training.
Okay, yeah.
That training that incorporates public service
There you go.
and selfless service also.
Okay.
So that's the background that I came from my grandmother feeding people out of the back of her house. People coming to the back door of the house to eat. So it was so much involvement in the community and again selfless service.
Okay.
That when this situation came up regarding Congress, then it was an opportunity for me.
Well, tell us a little bit about the situation that came up. What made you jump in the fire and decide that this was something that you would want to try and get into?
Well, my hand was actually forced.
Huh.
Okay, this run for Congress was actually forced upon me.
Okay.
I wrote our Congressman Mike Rogers a letter about issues that I experienced at the local VA hospital. He responded with a stop letter, didn't answer any of my questions, and I believe that he left me with no other alternative but to stand up and fight for what's right.
So, in your opinion, this is kind of a call to action.
It was definitely a call to action.
So, getting back to that in a minute, because that kind of goes into, the why you're doing it and some of the other stuff. I'd be wrong if I didn't ask you, tell me a little bit about your family. And I understand you have a couple of people that serve that are your children.
Yes.
Give us a little understanding about the Smith household.
Well, the Smith household. Well, I'm a veteran.
Okay.
I served 14 years in the military.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you for your service as well. I served 4 combat tours overseas, but I'd say my home is being managed and is being taken care of by a captain, United States Army captain. My wife, she's an awesome person, great mom, and also a dedicated public servant.
So in my household, my wife just normally pulls rank. Does yours pull rank naturally?
Well, there came a point in time to where we had to get to that point.
So you still lose too, huh?
Well, I lose all the time.
Yeah, well, it's an honest situation. Look. Now that's about as real as a politician has ever got. Yes, I lose at the house, just like everybody else,
Hey, I
right?
lose all the time, but you know what?
It's worth it, though, right?
And we agree to disagree. We have
Okay.
an opportunity to grow from whether it's an argument or discussion. We always try to create an environment for growth.
Tell me about the kids.
The kids, wow, well, there are five of them, and we have a blended family. The oldest is 29,
Okay.
and she lives in Colorado. Uh, my next is 23. She lives in Pell City. She's in college.
Okay.
This is the Army specialist.
Okay.
She's in the United States Army Reserves, and she's finishing. She should be graduating with a nursing degree in May. So we're very excited about that. My oldest son, who's 22, he's in the United States Army, well, the United States Navy, and he's stationed out in Washington State.
Okay.
My middle son, he is 19, and he is on a soccer scholarship to Parker Brewington.
So we have something in common. We got 19, 18 and 19-year-olds in college at the same time. Boy, look, wait a minute. Both of us did like this at the same time. So, and it's one more, right?
One more.
Okay.
And this is Jesse the second,
Uh-oh.
9-year-old.
Uh-oh.
And this guy is he's going to be president probably in 2027 or 20.
He's watching to see what to do and potentially what not to do at times, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, a follow-up question. Now that we know a little bit about your family, we know a little bit about your background, why should we vote for you?
Wow, that is a great question. And you know what? I have a pretty good answer for
Okay.
that question. If we think about things that politicians advocate for, if we listen to politicians as they tell us their stump speech and tell us the things that they want to do for us, we can look at their platform and see, is there any genuine concern for people that's incorporated in that?
Mm-hmm.
And my platform was created and generated by the need of the people. Veterans, we have nearly 80,000 veterans in our district, but there's a lot of veterans that are without representation. So as a veteran myself, how can I sit back and allow an individual who either didn't have the guts or the timing wasn't right for that individual to serve their country? How am I to expect that individual to care for me and my fellow comrades? So when we think about what we can do as leaders and as people in the community, it all depends on how we work together. Working together on issues that are, and my grandfather used to always say, the conflict of our lifetime is to coexist between two things that are totally true, yet opposing each other. And your perspective is the only difference between the two. We have people living in poverty. We have people that rely on all different types of subsidies and government programs, but they're on two different sides of the spectrum. We have to bring these people together to see that we actually are in the same boat together. It's just a matter of who's going to pick up the oar and who's going to help row, or are we just going to sit back and remain to be dead weight in our communities?
Well, go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, but to answer your question in short, I'm willing to continue to sacrifice, and I was prepared to die for my country while serving overseas. So I feel it's only necessary that I can stand up and fight for the things that I was prepared to die for, and that's the American people.
So, a lot of politicians run for an office, but they don't know much about the office. Tell me what your perspective of the actual office is and some of the duties that you feel make that office important for what you would do to represent me.
Absolutely, and again, I mentioned I had no desire in getting involved in politics.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically looked at the last 8 years and recognized that we have a United States Congress with an 11% approval rating. We have a United States Congress who are doing the bidding for the wealthy. They're doing the bidding for these corporations. If we think of the minimum wage, for instance, my opponent doesn't believe in the concept of a federal minimum wage.
Okay.
He believes that these corporations should be able to pay people what they want to pay them. Now, understanding that in the last 40 years, the minimum wage has only increased by $4, there needs to be some type of legislation to raise the minimum wage. Now, there's a discussion going on about $15 may be too much, $12 may be. The bottom line is, for a single family home living in the 3rd District of Alabama, they should be making somewhere around $13.66 per hour in order to be able to afford a 2-bedroom home.
Okay.
So if we have people living in this area that aren't being compensated, and our representative doesn't believe they should be compensated, we have a call to action, if you will.
Okay. What would you say after you've been out in the public and talking to many different people? I'm sure more than you ever imagined. What would you say are the top 3 to 5 issues that keep coming up that would be what you call central issues?
Well, jobs,
Okay.
healthcare, and education.
Okay.
And without saying, veterans is the number one issue, because that's the number
It's
one.
near and dear to you.
Near and dear to
Got
you.
that.
But those other 3 issues, jobs, education, and healthcare, they definitely, it's what people want answers for.
So in the jobs and the healthcare, that all falls, in my opinion, under an economic plan. Help me get to how you would put that plan into action, or what you see as your economic plan that would help get people to, say, the middle class, or to where you would like to see Alabama 3rd District get to. Help me get there.
Well, we actually have a plan that's called the Triangle for Success.
Okay.
And the Triangle for Success includes a few things. Number 1, it includes raising the wage.
Okay.
Number 2, it addresses the extremely high student loan debt, $1.7 trillion student loan debt. It requires to retire or reduce that student loan debt. Number 3 would be our infrastructure rebuilding. We think about bringing jobs into our economy, rebuilding our infrastructure. Well, we have to establish a training plan that'll train unqualified citizens to be able to do those little tasks, whether it be concrete work, whether it be carpentry work, training people, giving people these new skill sets so they can go out in the community under the federal infrastructure rebuilding plan to rebuild their communities.
So you've alluded to the education, and there are a segment of people out there that whenever you say Common Core, their mind explodes.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you on education? Not necessarily just Common Core, but education in general. Where do you kind of stand on the funding aspect, or how curriculum should be, or even if you would want to get involved in any of that?
Well, we do know that education is a state-run plan. However, there's a federal Department of Education. There's some funding that's out there for state schools and state organizations that the people in the 3rd District are not, we're not privy to. We don't have access to those grants and those other programs. For example, Congressman Rogers voted against a grant program for historical black colleges and Hispanic colleges. Now, right here in the 3rd District, we have Tuskegee University and Talladega College, which are both historical black colleges. And if you've ever visited the campus of either one of those universities compared to Auburn University or any of the other well-known colleges, Jacksonville State University, the difference.
Better get Alabama in there, otherwise they're going to get mad at you.
Well, they're not in the district.
I got you, but I'm just saying. I'm trying to save you there, Congressman.
Well,
yeah, I'll get you.
But basically,
yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
If we're not investing into these universities, I mean, it's a part of bringing education to everyone on an equal playing field up to the level of 21st century standards. I mean, they have buildings at Talladega College that are falling apart. They have buildings at Talladega College where there's still leaks in the roofs. You know, the plumbing is leaking. So when we don't have that type of investments that is being put towards education across the board, some people are getting better education than others, or so it appears.
So we've talked a little bit about economics. We talked a little bit about education. Um, it would be wrong of me with your background in military to not talk about. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. I want to start at home first because I think that a lot of people are concerned about security at home. What would be your suggestion? I mean, what would be your idea or plan for trying to help people feel more secure at home? And the sad part is, I'm not necessarily talking about just foreign threats, but even some domestic threats.
Yeah. Well, that's we do have a problem with that.
Hmm.
There are a lot of people who are concerned with the security threats, whether it be from Islamic terrorists, homegrown terrorists, or what have you. But I believe that we're in a time where we must begin to respect each other. That quote that I mentioned earlier about perspectives.
Hmm.
Uh, we have to, when your food is not secure, if you're living in your home and your next door neighbor is hungry, you have a security problem. There's a security problem.
At some point, it's going to be an issue.
At some point in time, if your family is hungry enough and the family next door has food, there's a security problem.
And if you don't know that, then you missed a lot growing up, didn't you?
Well, message.
that's one of those lifelong messages right there, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how do we get a little bit better about possibly trying to solve that problem?
Well, people have to understand that you have to be involved in the process, whether it's politics, whether it's agriculture, whether it's transportation around the cities. There are things that citizens, people, can do. Uh, and you'll hear me mention quotes, but my grandmother would always say, "Charity begins at home and spreads abroad." If we have security threats on the inside of our homes, you have parents who are scared of their kids on the inside of their homes. You have kids that are afraid of their parents on the inside of their homes. So security threats exist inside the homes. If we can begin to work together and respect each other on the inside of our homes, when we go outside, it gives the opportunity for us to interact with respectful people, because people in all different parts of the community are promoting respect, appreciation, and discipline within their homes. It begins at home. The problems that we have in this country, they all begin at home. If and I say this simply because I have kids, and I look at how I talk to my and how I deal with my 9-year old compared to how I dealt with my 29-year old.
Totally different.
Totally different demographic, totally different time periods. But we must also, we must continue to establish respect being the number one pinnacle in our homes.
Now, as congressperson,
Yes,
you are responsible for the budget.
yes.
How, how do we, I mean, is it that we need to get out of some of these things that we're in, or as we put stuff in the budget, finding the money to pay for it on just local stuff, even like uh, cameras for police officers, and you know, in these times, it seems like money seems to be the root of all evil when it comes to having to decide between security
Hmm. Yeah.
and the budget. You pull stuff out based upon what you can afford. Are we getting to the point where we may not be able to afford our own security, or how would you put that situation out there?
Well, I don't think we're getting to the point to where we can't afford our security. I think Greatness never goes on sale.
Hmm. Okay.
Greatness simply costs what it costs. If we're going to be great, we have to invest in greatness. We can't invest in mediocrity and think that greatness is just going to come knocking at the door. That's what we've done in this country. If you look at, you talk about spending, allocation of funds and resources.
Mm-hmm.
Congress controls the purse strings.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at the defense budget.
Okay.
Nearly $700 billion. 60 billion goes to the VA, goes to the Veterans Administration. Peanuts. 258 billion allocated to the top 10 defense contractors that have a contract with the federal government.
Mm.
So, if we really pull that onion back, if we pull another layer of that onion back, we'll realize that the taxpayers are paying extremely a high bill for labor, the civilian contractors in Iraq. While serving in Iraq, for example, um, the person who passes out the gym towels in the workout room was a civilian contractor making $180,000 a year, with 80,000 being tax exempt. Oh, by the way, the laundry that these service members are turning in every day costs the taxpayers $99 per bag of laundry, which weighs about 15 pounds. There's no other way you can get your laundry done in any other location but that facility. So if we really want to cut government funding and allocate resources to the areas like security so we can have great security, we're going to have to invest. And in order to invest, we have to find politicians who are not in bed with these defense contractors who are basically robbing the taxpayer blind.
So if you became a congressman and we're talking about going, look, deep diving into the budgets, are you saying that one of the things that you're looking at doing is possibly trying to get rid of some of this, not necessarily, well, wasteful spending? Is that what I mean? Let's call a duck, based upon what you're saying. Is that not somewhat risky when it comes to being real with, say, even your party in that situation? How does that work out in that deal?
Well, I don't look at it as being risky.
Okay.
Because as elected officials, I believe we're supposed to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. So if we have individuals that are not allocating the resources, let me give you an example.
Okay.
In 2012, Congressman Rogers was named by the Citizens Against Government Waste as Porker of the Month. So all of the wasteful spending that we're talking about goes to these pork projects that helped fund his campaign. So he was Porker of the Month in 2012, and he was Porker of the Month in 2014 as well. He has a rich history, rich tradition of taking the taxpayer dollars and allocating it towards the people who are donating funds to his campaign.
Okay. Well, you kind of told me a little bit about some of the things that you're doing in the U.S. right
Yes,
now.
yes.
And if it happens in the U.S., it affects the third congressional district, right?
Absolutely.
So now let's talk a little bit about you've been overseas.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen what's happening over there. You've been a part of actually getting involved in combat theaters. What do you see that you would support or not support, or kind of your plan that kind of would be your guide, I guess, in foreign policy?
Well, as a service member, uh, we were definitely taught that war is a last option. Diplomacy, working together with, even if they're enemies, there's a way that we can find common ground to ensure that we are bringing peaceful situations to each country. So I believe diplomacy and the will to diplomatically hash out problems versus as soon as the problem gets hard or tough, we going to war. We got a strong military, we're going to war. And they believe in beating their chest. Republicans believe in beating their chest about we have a mighty military. I know for a fact that we have a very mighty military. Not only do we have a great military, but our country is outspending any other country in the world by almost 10 times.
On
So
military.
on defense.
Right.
So for people to say that, oh well, our military is not great, or you know what, that's just missing some very key points. And the very key points are what I've learned in politics. If you follow the money, you'll follow the process. Money leads to processes.
Okay.
And that's so with regards to war, I definitely understand that our men and women in uniform, they sign up to serve their country. I did the exact same thing. But the day we arrived to Iraq, a week later, for me and my soldiers to stand around and to know we should not have been there, I had a problem with that. To know that we were told that weapons of mass destruction was there, and I not one time had to wear my chemical suit or my chemical mask, I have a problem with that. But we must ask ourselves, what was the reasoning behind that if there were no weapons of mass destruction? Then we go back to the dollars. We look at the defense contractors and find out how much money that they're getting from the taxpayers. There you have it. Perpetuation of war for an extended period of time.
Now, and I know, today is the 7th of October, and we have Matthew hanging out on the coast right now. One of the biggest expenses over the last 15, 20 years for government has been FEMA. And I don't quite understand its role sometimes because it seems as if it's like a double dip into insurance and then government spending. Where do you kind of sit on that deal, considering that we have these disasters that seem to keep coming up on a regular? We have tornadoes and everything else, and it just seems that we're racking up debt sometimes, maybe for a good reason, obviously, if it's that situation. But if you're a congressman, is this something that you would continue to support, or is that something that may need to take another look at?
Well, I would definitely support the federal emergency management. As a former occupational safety and health manager and accident investigator, I understand the importance of all of these organizations.
Right.
They existed for a reason. But I question the fact that we have so many politicians that are complaining that climate change is not even real.
Okay.
Climate change is a hoax. So they're talking climate change is a hoax. As soon as this disaster that's going on the east coast of Florida, I believe nothing like this has happened in the last over a century.
At least 20 to 40 years at this one time.
I heard a gentleman discussing, and I'm not sure if he was talking about the storm as it goes to South Carolina and North Carolina, but the path in which Matthew was taking, the storm hadn't gone in that direction for over.
Since around Ivan or some of the others, because it cut through Florida at one point. But I guess are with the budget, well, not the budget, but the deficit starting to climb as it is, can we afford to continue adding to the deficit in the budget, or are we kind of selling ourselves out to foreign governments to keep our budget going? I mean, what do you think about how we're paying for a lot of these different things, and is it worth it?
Well, if you think, we have people who are running for office right now that are
Mhm.
talking about giving the wealthy and the large corporations an additional 20% um, tax break. You know, if we think about how we got in the position where we are right now,
Mhm.
it was due to tax breaks. So when we thinking about, let's talk about right around in Alex City. Let's talk about rebuilding the infrastructure here. We have a Walmart down the street, right?
Mhm.
Walmart doesn't pay any taxes. But you know what? There's so many heavy 18-wheeler trucks that drive up and down this road and they're tearing up these roads. Guess who's going to pay for it?
Yeah.
The citizens are going to pay for it.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, Walmart gets their tax abatement and, you know, they tax exemption and they do what they do for 20 years. They can do that for 20 years. And oh, by the way, when they're done, they'll just cut and leave that facility there empty and vacant for the taxpayers to basically bite the bullet on.
So, speaking from the position that we've covered foreign policy, we've covered a little domestic relations. Something that probably is a big issue right now affects you, me, and a bunch of other people in the third congressional district, but seems to be more of a state. I mean, not a state, a national question. Um, the nation seems to be somewhat divided. Maybe is that a situation where it's driven by the media, or is that something that's real and we're having to kind of go through this phase every 50 years or so of unrest in the country? How can we, and more specifically, how can you as a congressman help to work through some of these things to try and get the country back to a somewhat healed or reasonable and workable
Yeah, yeah.
place? And I say that not necessarily black and white, but as you know, it's economic. It's all different types of groups.
Mhm.
How can we get a little bit better, and how can you use that position to do that?
Well, you know, that's a great question, and it's something that we we try to utilize and think about every day. Everything that I do, I try to keep in mind the the complexities of the things that we're dealing with, and the third, fourth, and fifth order of effects that has arisen from these things.
Right.
So, if we're really going to, um, I believe, to address the issue, someone has to set the example. You know, if you think about, you know, the disrespect and you know the disregard for positioning, just by the commander in chief, you know, just the blatant disrespect towards elected officials, whether they are right or wrong. You know, if we're going to, if we can disrespect the president of this country, should we expect anyone else to have respect for us as average people?
Okay.
We don't care about, you know, when people don't care about the person who is our voice, if we can just completely ignore that person, disrespect and disregard that person, regardless if we believe in what uh, they say or what they stand for or not, then we're basically opening that door for the exact same thing to be done against us. So I think it's incumbent upon me to try to be as supportive, understanding, and inviting to everyone. I've had people say some horrible things to me about running for office, but you know what? People will say horrible things all the time. They talk bad about Christ.
Yep. That
Talk.
did that was not a positive. So if he had to go through it, then
I'm not exempt.
yeah,
I'm not
that's a
exempt.
good point.
And not only that, I use, you know, those opportunities as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to strengthen myself. Because as a representative, I have to be that individual that can toe the line, and not just toe the line for what I believe in, toe the line and stand firm on what the people want me to represent.
Corruption.
Corruption.
So, how can we bring some normalcy back to Congress not necessarily having the run of the land and the normal people who pay them
Yeah.
not feel as if they're the person that's kind of left out in the cold? Any ideas?
Absolutely.
That seemed like a softball question.
No, to me, it
I'm
was a
sorry.
softball. Is he going to softball lately? Well,
I'm losing it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Vote for Jesse Smith on November the 8th.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. In 2014, I ran against Congressman Mike Rogers. We raised less than $9,000. The congressman spent $1.9 million. Here in 2016, we've raised less than $15,000, and the congressman is approaching $1 million. So if we want to get corruption out of politics, we have to recognize that we have someone that's toeing the line. Saying, here we are. Here's an opportunity to elect someone who's not purchased, who can't be bought, and who's standing out fighting for the average Alabamian. Well, that's how we get corruption out of politics.
I was going to go down another path with some more questions, but honestly, I think that right there summarizes a lot of your platform as far as where you've come from over the last few years. But before we end this particular interview,
okay,
I want you to look into that camera and talk to the individuals in your district and tell them why you're running and ask them for your vote.
I thank you for this opportunity. I've been waiting to look at the camera. Hi, again, I'm Jesse Smith, and I'm running to be a representative of the 3rd District of Alabama. Not a career politician, unlike my opponent who's been in office approaching 30 years. I'm not a career politician. I just felt that there's a need for someone to stand up and to stand up firm, to be bold in what they believe in, because that's what we need. We're in a time in our country where we have people just lean left, lean right, and just follow the status quo. Well, the status quo didn't put Jesse T. Smith up to run for Congress. Not one Democrat put me up to doing it, not one independent, only one Republican. And that Republican is Congressman Mike Rogers. He's been in office for 5,110 days, and he's managed to pass one piece of legislation that has no benefit to one person in the 3rd District of Alabama. So as we think about where we want to go in the 21st century and where we want to go in the next few years, we need to think about trying something different. They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I kind of call it, I don't call it insanity, I call it completely insane. We must come together as citizens in this district and take back our district. Take it back to where the people are in control. So if we can all work together to go to football games and to cheer on different teams, we can all come together to cheer on the future for our children and our grandchildren. And electing me as congressman on November the 8th, I think we'll come closer to bringing equal and fair representations, not only to ourselves, but again, to our children and our grandchildren. I appreciate the opportunity of campaigning. I appreciate meeting people along the way. And I'm a people person. So when it's time for us to come together and sit down and discuss these tough issues, I'm an individual that's not going to run from the challenge. It's time for us to come together. And I think November the 8th, we can do that.
Well, let me ask you, you didn't ask him. Go ahead and ask him for that vote one more time.
Again, I'm Jesse Smith. And on November the 8th, I would really, really like it very much if I could have your vote. Please vote for Jesse T. Smith on November the 8th. Now, I'm Jesse Smith and I approve this message.
Oh, no. Well, let me ask this one question because you brought up something. $9,000, $15,000. You can't do this without money, I'm assuming. is there a place that people can go to that they can possibly donate to your campaign or something of that nature?
Absolutely. If you want to donate to the campaign, you can go to jessesmithforcongress.com. There's a donate button on there. It's to a secure site. And, we could definitely use, with 30 days remaining into this election, we talk about wanting to get corruption out of politics. Well, this is a way that we can start. You can start by donating $5, $10, or whatever it takes. But as we can purchase airtime such as this and provide the material to get out there to get people energized, then I believe we'll definitely be successful.
Okay. Once again, we provide all candidates that are interested in running for office a service to be able to talk to individuals online direct through Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, whatever. Uh, we don't charge. We try to make it where it's just like sitting at your home and doing what you got to do. I really enjoyed you this afternoon. Once again, the Jesse Smith that is running for the 3rd Congressional District for United States Congress. And good luck to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Till the next time, my friends, we will see you on the centrist of Alabama. And we appreciate you joining us each time we have a video posted. Thank you.